Today we're going to discuss three Batman movies, The Long Halloween, Mask of the Phantasm, and The Killing Joke. All three animated movies, of course. Just quick impressions, what do you think of them?
Yes, I thought they were all around all solid enough movies. I think my favorite was definitely The Long Halloween. Then it was probably The Killing Joke, and then Phantasm. What would you have rated the movies actually?
Well, I think they're interesting to put together because they're all straight to DVD movies, which is worth considering. Two of them based off comics, probably plot reaches a higher height, but I think Mask of the Phantasm has less weaknesses overall.
I go loony as a light bulb battered bug.
So The Killing Joke, what do you think?
Well, it's quite obvious. The first half was a big letdown, but once they actually get into the proper materials of the comics, it really became better.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. It's almost like they had this pilot of a Batgirl show or something that they just had to throw in there. It would have been a terrible show. But I don't even know why they put it in. It's like the story of Batgirl taking on some random crazy fuck that we've never seen before. Yeah, I think maybe it's to draw sympathy for Barbara Gordon and what happens later, but it's a straight to DVD movie. Everyone who's watching it knows the Killing Joke story pretty much.
Took me out of it with the Batman and Batgirl romance. Like, what the fuck was that? Like,
it's like way worse as well because then she's like narrating the entire thing to random people in the library.
yeah.
It was really strange as well to me because it was so like nothing happens compared to the Killing Joke where there's, it's a lot of contradictions. It's a deep story. You've got tragedy, all these different themes that are interesting. This is so shallow. It's like a kid's movie, but the Killing Joke's rated 15s. Like they could have done something interesting with it. This Paris guy, like he's just a non-character. It was like Joker light. Like they were preparing to write the actual Joker. Okay, so the opening of the dentist being dead, just watching that, because obviously that's not part of the original comic.
Why are we going here? Why are we doing this? Like,
I liked the dentist opening because I thought it provided a bit of context, whereas in the initial comic, it just opens with Batman walking into Arkham. And I think this gives us a bit more insight where there's a reason why he's investing in the Joker. It's not sudden. I know that was the strength of the Killing Joke, that it could take place at any time.
What I do think about the actual Killing Joke itself, I thought it was very well done, except for the musical. As I said, it was just a bit like, why?
I did think this movie, other than whatever they were doing in that opening, was quite respectful to Alan Moore's work, where obviously we've seen the panels. They gave Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill those iconic, monologues or conversations. And as well, like there were a bunch of small details. You could see there was love put into it to a certain degree. There was a shot on the Bat computer thing where a bunch of iconic pictures from comics. And I'm kind of just wondering, what if you ditched the opening and just had an hour of that?
I generally don't think it would be more than 30 minutes max, and that's like stretching it in a few places.
The fight scene in the funhouse, though, where between Batman and Joker, I thought it was a fantastic scene.
One of the bits I actually found the most funny is Batman just straight up killed one of the midgets. Like, you cannot convince me otherwise. There was like a spike trap all at the end. Batman got one of the midgets and just threw him in there.
You must have missed the Batsy Castle at the bottom. So then what do you think then of the overriding theme between good and evil?
See, I actually really enjoyed it because it's like, oh, one bad day like will ruin anyone. That's not true. Gordon didn't become like him. Gordon was so good. I really did like the talk at the end, how Batman just wanted to basically give up on this whole, one of us has to kill the other. And Joker's a bit like,
I'm sorry, but
nah.
This movie does a great job asking questions about what makes Batman Batman. Why is he allowed to do what he does? I mean, he's not allowed, but why does he do what he does? I think it's a fantastic, examination into the character of the Batman.
Definitely.
I gotta say, I'm surprised. It was a real pleasure to rewatch Mask of the Phantasm when I was looking at the movies we were gonna do.
I actually quite disliked Mask of the Phantasm.
Positively shocking.
I think Mask of the Phantasm is a fantastic film it's the perfect origin film, really, in terms of it looks at what makes Batman tick. Why does he keep doing this? What would it make him take to give it all up? Why is Batman the Batman?
what I found the biggest problem with the Mask of Phantasm is just the smaller details just never added up. But something I actually also disliked is how weird the Phantasm was with how smoke equals teleportation. That was one of my biggest issues.
That was one of the bigger contradictions I had as well, is how the Phantasm works, because they show Andrea do a jujitsu move one time, but it's never explained why she's able to fight better than Batman at any point. Like, maybe she went away and trained for 5 years, but they never say it.
And there was something else I found a bit off, and what I didn't really like is how they added the Joker in. I didn't think it was necessary, because this wasn't a Joker film, you know?
I think that's what completed the film, really, is that it brought us back to the traditional Batman storytelling formula, where, okay, we've got this Phantasm, and it goes through a character arc of Bruce and why he's Batman, how he becomes what he does. You know, we see him put on the cowl for the first time, but then it's back to Joker. Joker's the one who takes everything from him. Joker is what completes this cycle of, you know, the character. What did you think of Joker being a mobster? Obviously, the sign that we've seen in like the '89 film, but generally they don't like to give him an origin that seems so normal.
For me, from the Killing Joke. So that's always his origin story for me. And
I would say it's a controversial opinion, but I do like giving Joker a more traditional mindset of he's a gangster who's just got this really cartoonish, you know, mannerism. I think he's crazy in the way he moves, but not crazy in the way he thinks necessarily, which I think works better for pretty much every story. Because
how would you think of the Phantasm? He acted almost like a slasher villain.
The logic isn't really there. I think the Phantasm makes for a good villain. Obviously, that generally you can dislike the character arc with Andrea, but I do think Phantasm's a cool idea. Another issue I had with Andrea is her identifying Bruce Wayne as Batman simply by the fact that he was stood next to the Wayne's grave.
Bruce?
That was so stupid. Or something else. It was like,
Are
why didn't Andrea just ask Bruce for a loan?
I guess Bruce has high interest rates.
Well, that's-
Shareholders are expecting a 5% return, I'll have you know. I think it's kind of strange that a story has both a well-established Batman and a Batman starting out.
When was it actually set? Was it like late year 1, early year 2?
I took it as we're in like, you know, a 4 years in sort of Batman with flashbacks. But
Yeah.
see, that's my issue. That's why I'm wondering where in continuity does this go with Batman being well-established and starting. I don't think the story's supposed to think continuity, obviously, with what Joker does. I just think that we're supposed to take it as by itself. Okay, so the Long Halloween's introduction, where I had like the little scenes bringing us into the story,
Yeah. I actually quite enjoyed them.
it kind of reminded me of the Watchmen movie, where you have the context for the story being interplaced with, like, you know, the title and the credits. Obviously, it had images of art from the story. I think the animation looks really funny, where whenever characters are distances apart or in the background, you can see there's no detail whatsoever. Like, characters are running like they're going through water. There's one bit where Mickey Chen is running and he's got his arms out like this, you know?
You know the car crash at the start? I always found that quite weird, because why would they swerve? Now, no, this was just after I watched the Phantasm, and I was still pretty pissed off about smoke screens. So it's kind of like the car was going in a straight line. Batman flew down. He hit the smoke screen, and then the car went like.
I think they were on their way to a funeral.
I think it's trying to go for an effect, you know, like the Batman in 2021, where it's showing the impact of Batman in Gotham, where we see all the crime that's occurring, but we get the sense the villains are starting to think twice. They're still bribing the judges, but we see the bat signal in the background, and then you see Batman, you become impulsive, you make sudden turns. I think it's just trying to show that there's an impact there, but he's not all the way. What do you think of the death scenes, where whenever a character dies, we kind of get this, we don't see the death happen, kids movie or whatever, but we get this shot of the body, and it's kind of zooming out with the title card showing the holiday.
I actually thought that was quite unique, especially since when they, in the second movie, when they kind of skipped over 1 or 2 or 3 death, like holidays,
Yeah.
and they just showed like flashes of it, just to represent they're still active and all that kind of stuff.
I thought it was quite
Memorable.
like, it was kind of like the Untouchables, where you just see the body, And that's all you need. And it just lets it sink in like, this is a killer.
One thing that I never understood is just the lack of policing and police protection that there was. I'm talking about when he killed the nephew.
We get the sense that the Falcones are still paying off police. They don't trust the police. We see that when Falcones offer police protection later. So he's probably trying to
keep up appearances.
He wouldn't tell his family that he's about to testify against them.
Yeah.
But also, I don't think Gordon trusts his police at this stage with the bribery that's occurring.
In a town this big, who's there to write to anyway?
Something else I really liked was, Falcone's mental gymnastics just to blame Dent.
I think the issue is that the comics, they had these panels to justify decisions. They gave us pieces of evidence. The movie hasn't got time to do it, but it wants to use the same suspects. So it does these crazy explanations where it has Calendar Man come in for no reason and just tell us the suspects, basing them off virtually nothing. I think another reason why the police are reluctant to do any work is because we see Gordon conducts the softest interrogation we've ever occurred. Kicking over the chair is enough. Yeah. This man has rights, Batman. Give him his coffee. Thanksgiving scene, the tension is really good. Where it interlaces clips of Gordon's family, Batman investigating, and then the Chens having their party. Meanwhile, we see her loading shot and shot. Killing Alberto in the part 1, I don't really have an issue with. I think killing Alberto, first off, it makes it a good part 1, part 2, which is what they need to market the thing. But secondly, Alberto isn't the best character. And
what I think it did especially well is it would have thrown off the comic readers.
Yeah, what do you think of Catwoman's character in the story? She has a much increased role from the comic in that she's maybe in it 2 or 3 times.
I actually, I didn't dislike it at all, but I did find it quite weird because I'm not sure. Did she know Bruce was Batman in by the time they were on the boat?
She did.
Bruce.
Wait, Bruce? Wayne? Bruce Wayne?
She did, but it's explained early that she doesn't know.
Miss Kyle telephoned. She said she was checking the number you gave her to make sure it's real.
So we never see him tell her, and I think that creates a big issue.
Yeah.
First off, because she's apparently an idiot who can't keep any secret.
Oops.
And secondly, why does Batman say anything? He doesn't need to in this story.
Yeah.
So what do you think then of the ending where we see Two-Face character? It's kind of different than a normal Two-Face, I suppose, where we get the sense that Harvey's still in there and there is redemption, which helps explain why Batman doesn't give up on him, but him turning himself in.
No, actually, I have no points.
I think it does a good job of making him into more of a noble character than just a funny guy who flips coins. Personally, I think the worst movie, you need to look at the whole package, and Killing Joke has the most weaknesses. I think if you were going to make a homebrew of it, you could make it a far superior movie. It's got great moments in it, but I think it's number 3. Then for number 2, I put The Long Halloween. It's most consistent. Visually, it looks really nice. The voice acting is not always there.
Nah.
There in the plot. It's too many contradictions for me. And then when it comes to the highest heights, I think Mask of the Phantasm is really good for a Batman story. It's got everything that I think you want in an animated movie. It's the only one that was made to be a movie. The other ones were clearly made to be a comic.
Number 3, Phantasm. I thought it had the most inconsistencies, the most plot holes, and it's just the one I enjoyed the least. I wasn't super attached to the film. It was the first time watching it, first time I ever heard of it, so its flaws stuck out more than its positives. Number 2, The Killing Joke. I thought the ending, at least, the last, when it actually goes to the comic, I thought it was by far the strongest. I thought it had the best plot, most interesting dive into Batman, the Joker, and all that kind of stuff. But it's just the first half that lets it down so heavily, that way. Where it was just, why are we doing this? This is completely redundant. And then number one, obviously, the only one that's left, The Long Halloween. It was just the most consistently solid one, and that's what won out in the end, consistency. What do you think of Batman in all three of them?
Mask of the Phantasm is the most typical and what we expect of Batman. It's him becoming Batman, him battling with what it means to be Batman. The Long Halloween tackles the idea of a Batman starting out, being inexperienced, having a lot more flaws, and being helpless at times. But I think it's, insights into the character is a bit more base level, whereas The Killing Joke is obviously the most heavy. You can see there's a lot of depth there with what it means to be good, what it means to be bad. Why do you do what you do? Can it be solved? So I would say that's the strongest in this regard.
Yeah. What I found most interesting with, especially The Long Halloween, Batman wasn't the greatest detective in the world. He was actually, terrible. He wasn't even a detective.
So what do you think of the villains in the three movies?
I very much like the main villains in both The Long Halloween and The Killing Joke. I thought the Joker, when he was actually on screen in The Killing Joke, was by far one of the standouts. How he contrasted Batman, how he brought out new elements, how he explained his psychology, and obviously, at least for me, how it introduced him and explored his backstory, which not many people do. It's very much like the
The first time his backstory was told.
Yeah, and I thought they did it quite well, at least,
Sometimes another. If I'm going to have a past, I prefer it to be multiple choice.
I liked the villains in Mask of the Phantasm. I thought it was a good version of Joker, where we were given a reason why the Joker is who he is to this story, why we should care about him. And the Phantasm, obviously, symbolizing, I suppose, grief, what Batman could have become. The opposite of him in ways that the Joker isn't. I think The Long Halloween isn't really so focused on its main villain as it is on its world compared to the other two, where they want you to look at the Phantasm, they want you to look at the Joker, but with The Long Halloween, they want you to look at a dirty Gotham that's trying to be fixed.
Yeah.
We're looking at the men who are trying to do it and what it takes, what's going to cost them.
What I found, especially with the Phantasm one, is I know you disagree with this, but I didn't think the Joker was necessary. I thought it should have been a story about Batman versus the Phantasm. How, as you said, the Phantasm is what Batman could have been, but he's not. And I thought adding the Joker was just a bit like...
I think the Joker is the showcase of the difference between the two. You need to put in the exact thing that connects them, and that really examines where they differ. So to finish off, I think the best movie today, we've both come to the same conclusion. 2016 Suicide Squad.
Yeah. Whoops, they killed a guy. Let's not stand on ceremony, Mr. Wayne.